Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be taking a look at the 12 motorcycles that will be banned in 2026. Number 12, Kawasaki W800. The Kawasaki W800 stands as a classic in every sense, keeping alive the charm of old-school motorcycling with its vintage design and retro feel. It carries the look and spirit of the 1960s, from the teardrop tank to the round headlamp and wire-spoked wheels. But as emissions standards tighten and electric mandates grow stronger, this timeless machine could soon be forced off the market by 2026. Under its polished metal lies a 773cc air-cooled vertical twin engine, the same type of setup that helped define British bikes decades ago. It produces around 47 horsepower and offers smooth, predictable torque. The engine's mechanical nature with minimal electronic aid is what purists love most. But this simplicity also means higher emissions and lower fuel efficiency compared to today's cleaner, liquid-cooled engines. Meeting new EPA and Euro 6 type regulations in the next cycle would require major re-engineering, something Kawasaki may not see as profitable for such a niche model. Priced at around $9,900, the W800 sits in an awkward spot. It's more expensive than modern mid-tier options that offer better performance and technology, yet it's not exclusive enough to attract serious collectors. A legend in design but trapped by time, the W800 might soon fade out not because it failed, but because the world around it changed too fast. Number 11, Triumph Bonneville T100. The Triumph Bonneville T100 is one of those motorcycles that proudly wears its heritage on every curve and detail. It's built to echo the original 1959 Bonneville, carrying that unmistakable British charm that made the name iconic. But that same old-school approach may also be what ends its run by 2026. Modern emission rules and changing buyer demand are closing in fast, and the T100's traditional formula might not survive the shift. At its core, the Bonneville T100 uses a 900cc parallel twin engine that produces about 64 horsepower and plenty of mid-range torque. However, it's an air and liquid-cooled motor that still runs close to emission limits. The upcoming phase of EPA and Euro regulations will demand stricter controls on noise and CO2 output, updates that would force Triumph to redesign the powertrain from scratch. With a starting price near $11,500, the T100 isn't cheap for what it offers. Riders paying that much today expect advanced electronics, lighter frames, and better fuel economy. Instead, they get a bike that sells nostalgia more than innovation. While that worked for years, newer riders in the US now lean toward modern classics that blend retro looks with smart tech. If 2026 does mark its end, the Bonneville T100 will leave as a symbol of a bygone era, beautiful, honest, and loyal to its roots, but ultimately outpaced by time and regulation. Number 10, BMW R9T. The BMW R9T was designed as a celebration of pure motorcycling, a mix of old-school styling and modern engineering that captured enthusiasts from its first release. But despite its cult following, the R9T is facing the end of the road. Emission standards tightening across the US and Europe, along with the rise of electric priorities, make its air and oil-cooled setup a liability heading into 2026. Its 1170cc boxer twin engine produces around 109 horsepower and close to 86 pound-feet of torque. The motor is a work of art, both in sound and character, but it's also one of BMW's last air-cooled engines still in production. To keep it legal under the next wave of emission rules, BMW would have to make costly updates that could alter the bike's classic identity. The company already shifted much of its R-Series lineup to the newer liquid-cooled platforms, hinting that the R9T's time may be limited. With a price tag around $16,000, the R9T appeals to riders who value craftsmanship and simplicity over tech overload. But that niche is shrinking fast. Younger buyers in the US market want advanced rider aids, connectivity, and lower maintenance costs. By 2026, the R9T could bow out quietly, leaving behind a loyal fan base and a legacy of soulful engineering. Number 9, Royal Enfield Classic 350. The Royal Enfield Classic 350 has long been a global favorite for riders who love simplicity, low maintenance, and that unmistakable thump from its single-cylinder engine. It's affordable, easy to handle, and loaded with nostalgia. But despite its popularity, there's growing talk that this model could face a U.S. discontinuation by 2026. The bike runs on a 349cc single-cylinder motor that produces around 20 horsepower and just over 19 pound-feet of torque. While that's enough for relaxed city rides and short highway runs, the powertrain doesn't meet the fuel efficiency and emissions benchmarks that will likely tighten after 2025. For Royal Enfield to keep it compliant, they'd need a significant redesign, something that may not be practical for such a low-cost model. In the US, the Classic 350 sells for about $4,600, which makes it one of the cheapest full-size motorcycles available. But that price advantage also limits what Enfield can spend on engineering upgrades. Another issue is the declining interest among American riders for smaller displacement bikes. While the Classic 350 sells in huge numbers in Asia and Europe, it struggles to find consistent demand in the States, where most buyers prefer 600cc or higher. By 2026, the Classic 350 will likely vanish from U.S. showrooms, pushed out by strict emission laws and a market that no longer makes space for simple air-cooled machines. Number 8. Harley-Davidson Sportster 883. The Harley-Davidson Sportster 883 has been an American icon for decades, representing stripped-down freedom and mechanical honesty. But that long run may finally end by 2026. The bike's classic air-cooled V-twin engine, simple frame, and old-school charm no longer meet the rising demands for cleaner emissions and efficiency. The 883 engine makes around 50 horsepower and 55 pound-feet of torque. It's built for torque-heavy cruising and unmistakable Harley rumble, not performance. But the same setup that made it legendary is also what puts it in trouble. The air-cooled Evolution motor can't keep up with new EPA and Euro 6 standards without heavy rework. With a price hovering around $11,900, the Sportster 883 still draws nostalgic riders who want the true Harley feel without breaking the bank. But compared to new models offering smoother engines, better brakes, and advanced rider aids, it feels like a bike from another era. By 2026, the Sportster 883 will probably leave production, closing a historic chapter for Harley-Davidson and marking the end of one of America's most recognizable motorcycle names. Number 7. Indian FTR. The Indian FTR entered the scene as a street bike inspired by flat-track racing, giving American riders something raw and athletic. But despite its bold start, the FTR is now under pressure, and by 2026 it may no longer be part of Indian's lineup. The reason isn't performance, it's practicality, sales, and shifting regulations that make it harder for such niche bikes to survive. The FTR uses a 1200cc V-twin engine producing about 120 horsepower and 87 pound-feet of torque. It's quick, loud, and unapologetically mechanical, offering a riding experience that few modern bikes can match. But that power comes with heat, weight, and fuel consumption that don't align with stricter emission limits. Even after recent tuning updates to meet current EPA standards, it's only a matter of time before the cost of compliance outweighs its return. With prices starting near $13,500, the FTR sits between high-performance nakeds and premium cruisers, two categories already crowded by European and Japanese rivals. Sales in the US have slowed, partly because the FTR doesn't fit cleanly into a single segment. It's not a practical commuter, not a long-distance cruiser, and not a pure sport bike. By 2026, the Indian FTR could disappear from showrooms, remembered as a daring experiment that proved Indian could build something fast and modern, but couldn't outrun the changing rules of the industry. Number 6. Harley-Davidson Electra Glide. The Harley-Davidson Electra Glide has been a symbol of long-distance comfort and big American touring for generations. Its wide fairing, deep seat, and V-twin growl have carried countless riders across the country. But that same old-school setup could soon bring its downfall. By 2026, the Electra Glide may face discontinuation as emissions tighten and Harley's lineup shifts toward cleaner and more efficient touring platforms. Powered by a Milwaukee 8107 engine, the Electra Glide delivers around 89 horsepower and more than 107 pound-feet of torque. It's a torque-heavy motor built for smooth highway cruising, not speed or efficiency. However, the air-cooled nature of this engine makes it hard to keep within the next round of EPA and European standards. With a price of about $20,900, the Electra Glide sits in a competitive field where buyers expect better infotainment systems, adaptive cruise, and advanced safety features. The biggest reason for its possible end is strategic. Harley wants to modernize. Maintaining big air-cooled bikes is costly, and their appeal is shrinking among younger riders who prefer lighter, more efficient machines. By 2026, the Electra Glide could roll off into history, marking the quiet sunset of one of Harley's longest-running names and closing a proud era of heavy touring dominance on American roads. Number 5. Indian Scout 60. The Indian Scout 60 has long served as the brand's entry point, offering a classic cruiser look with real American muscle at an accessible price. But by 2026, it's expected to vanish from the market. The reason isn't lack of love, it's that the bike's design and emissions setup are simply running out of time under modern regulations. Its 999cc liquid-cooled V-twin produces around 78 horsepower and 65 pound-feet of torque. It's smooth and reliable, but it's also built on an older engine platform that struggles to meet upcoming standards without costly redesigns. Priced around $11,500, the Scout 60 competes in a tough field. Buyers expect modern safety tech, lean-angle ABS, traction control, and digital displays, all things the 60 skips in favor of simplicity. That's appealing to purists, but not enough to sustain large-scale sales in a market that's rapidly modernizing. Indian has already shifted focus toward its newer Power Plus and liquid-cooled platforms, signaling that the Scout's smaller models may be on the chopping block soon. By 2026, the Indian Scout 60 will likely disappear from showrooms, remembered as an honest, affordable cruiser that offered plenty of heart, but couldn't keep pace with the world's tightening standards and changing expectations. Number 4. Triumph Bonneville Bobber. The Triumph Bonneville Bobber stands out as one of the most visually striking motorcycles on the market, blending minimalist design with old-school performance. Its floating solo seat, wide bars, and low stance capture the look of custom-built bobbers from the past. But while it's loved for its style, the Bonneville Bobber faces a likely end by 2026 due to tightening emission laws and Triumph's gradual shift toward more modern and efficient models. It's powered by a 1200cc parallel twin engine that produces around 78 horsepower and 77 pound-feet of torque. The motor is smooth, torquey, and packed with character, but its partially air-cooled design is nearing the limit of what current emission systems can handle. Re-engineering it for compliance could make production costs too high for Triumph to justify, especially when newer 900cc models already meet stricter limits more easily. The Bonneville Bobber carries a price of roughly $13,000, putting it in direct competition with feature-rich cruisers and sport standards that offer better tech for the money. It's a beautiful machine, but its appeal leans heavily on nostalgia and aesthetics, not practicality. Sales have slowed, and Triumph's investment is clearly moving toward its Speed Twin, Trident, and upcoming electric projects. The Bobber, though beloved, no longer fits the brand's long-term path. By 2026, the Triumph Bonneville Bobber could be gone from U.S. showrooms. Remembered as one of the last truly mechanical-feeling modern classics before emission laws and economics brought its era to a close. Number 3. Harley-Davidson Road King. The Harley-Davidson Road King has ruled American highways for decades, a name that represents long-distance comfort, chrome-heavy styling, and unmistakable V-twin thunder. But after years of small updates and regulatory pressure building, the Road King's future looks uncertain. By 2026, this touring giant may finally roll off into retirement as Harley shifts focus toward cleaner, more advanced platforms. Under the tank sits a Milwaukee 807 engine pushing around 89 horsepower and more than 107 pound-feet of torque. It's a big, air-cooled motor designed for steady torque and smooth cruising. The problem is that same simplicity now stands in the way of compliance. The air-cooled setup struggles to meet upcoming emission and noise limits, and bringing it in line with 2026 standards would require a full redesign. For a model already losing ground in sales, that's an expense Harley is unlikely to take on. At around $22,000, the Road King is far from cheap, and its price overlaps with Harley's newer, more advanced touring bikes that offer better infotainment, safety, and comfort features. The likely discontinuation of the Road King isn't about failure, it's about evolution. Harley can't sustain multiple touring models when only a few meet future regulations. Number 2. Suzuki TU250X. The Suzuki TU250X has always been a small, dependable motorcycle built for simplicity. Its classic looks, light frame, and bulletproof engine made it a great starter bike and commuter. But those same traits that made it charming are now the reasons it's fading away. By 2026, the TU250X is expected to disappear completely from the US lineup, as it can no longer meet modern emissions and safety standards without a major overhaul. Its 249cc air-cooled single-cylinder engine produces about 16 horsepower, just enough for relaxed urban rides. The issue is, this old-school design dates back decades and uses outdated fuel and emission systems. Priced around $4,700, the TU250X has always been a budget option. That low price is part of its charm, but it also limits how much Suzuki can invest in keeping it alive. The real reason for its likely end by 2026 is economics. Reworking a small, low-margin bike for new regulations simply doesn't pay off. By 2026, the Suzuki TU250X will likely be gone from US showrooms. Remembered as a reliable, no-nonsense machine that kept riding simple until rules and time finally caught up with it. Number 1. Yamaha Bolt. The Yamaha Bolt earned a loyal following for its stripped-down bobber style, low seat height, and reliable V-twin power. It's simple, affordable, and easy to customize, everything riders love about a bare-bones cruiser. But by 2026, the Bolt is expected to leave the market as Yamaha phases out older air-cooled engines that can't keep up with tightening emissions and noise regulations in the US and abroad. Its 942cc air-cooled V-twin makes around 54 horsepower and 59 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 5-speed gearbox. The motor is smooth and durable, but its emissions output is high by modern standards. Updating this platform with liquid cooling or a revised exhaust system would mean a full redesign, which isn't realistic for a bike in this price range. Selling for roughly $8,000, the Bolt sits in a tough position. It's more expensive than smaller entry-level cruisers, yet lacks the features, tech, and refinement of mid-tier models. Sales have slowed as riders shift toward modern cruisers with better efficiency and safety features. The Bolt's charm lies in its simplicity, but simplicity is becoming harder to sell under stricter regulations. By 2026, the Yamaha Bolt will likely disappear from Yamaha's US lineup, ending one of the last affordable old-school cruisers that stayed true to its raw mechanical roots in a world now chasing cleaner and smarter machines. And with this, we have reached the end of this video. Make sure to like it and subscribe the channel for future upcoming videos.